Hello and welcome to Barcelona. We're here speaking at the end of the penultimate day of Formula 1 2020 pre-season testing. I'm Alex Callan-Orcus and with me is GP Racing Editor Ben Anderson and Autosports Formula 1 reporter Luke Smith. So, we finally saw something interesting happening after yesterday was a bit cagey and not all that much happening at all. Sebastian Vettel finished with the fastest time of 1 minute 16.841 seconds, which he set on the C5, the softest tyre, in the morning. Now, that time remained unbeaten throughout the afternoon, so we still don't think we've quite seen everything the Ferrari's got, but we've certainly seen something from it at least. There was also drama for Vettel. He spun in the morning, brought a load of gravel onto the track, caused a red flag, but there was even more drama at Mercedes. Now, Ben, you were outside in the afternoon watching trackside when Lewis Hamilton, who'd only just climbed aboard the W11, he'd done about 12 laps or so following Sebastian Vettel. The engine shut down. What happened?
Yeah, so I was standing on the inside of turn 5. Lewis was, as you say, about 10, 12 laps into a long run. Vettel was chasing him in the Ferrari, and they were doing sort of roughly equivalent lap times, I think. And the Mercedes just shut down all of a sudden, exiting turn 5. Lewis went for the power. Just complete shutdown.
Just went silent.
Silence, like a vacuum cleaner shutting down, a gentle whoosh, and he coasted to a halt, pulled over immediately on the right-hand side of the track, and it turns out there was an oil pressure problem again, I think, on the Mercedes engine, and it shut down as a fail-safe. So some concern, I think, maybe at Mercedes on the reliability of that new engine, because it's not the first failure they've had on either the works car or the customer engines.
No, indeed, Luke, you were saying yesterday about Williams and how many failures that have happened down there, or certainly engine issues going on with the Mercedes power unit.
Yeah, and again, that was all relating to the oil system as well. So I think maybe this is a weak spot that we're seeing in the Mercedes power unit going into the start of the season. So yeah, definitely something I think the team wants to get on top of, not just for its own sake, but also its customer teams, supplying Racing Point as well. Yeah, very, very concerning.
What did you make of the Ferrari time? Like I said, finally some pace, some interesting headline times there, but not quite the times that Valtteri Bottas topped the test one with for Mercedes.
No, I mean, Vettel's still a second off, which is still a huge gap. And obviously we don't know sort of the ins and outs of timings and things like that, and fuel loads and whatever. And Valtteri Bottas spoke today and he said that teams tend to play a weird game with one another through pre-season, which summed it up quite nicely. Did give away that he'd been running low fuel last week, I think, as expected. Said he'd like to do some more high fuel running at some point. So got a bit of that today, I think. And obviously tomorrow they'll want to tick that final box again. But yeah, I think it's certainly a sign from Ferrari that they're certainly upping things and getting a bit closer to what is their optimum pace. But yeah, still I think a long way to go before we can really see what they can do.
Now, Ben, what did the Ferrari look like trackside? I went out in the morning and didn't do all that much running, and then in fact Vettel came charging past to set his fastest lap time, and then trundled by after he'd gone off later on a couple of laps later with his spin. But what did you observe from seeing them at the side of the track?
Well, yeah, it's interesting with the Ferrari. I watched for about an hour yesterday afternoon on the outside of turn 7 and 8, the medium speed S's, and then most of the afternoon today. And the Ferrari seems to have, in all corners, I didn't see the chicane, that's the only one I can't comment on, an understeer problem. Through 7 and 8, Leclerc was driving yesterday, compared to Max Verstappen in the Red Bull and Bottas in the Mercedes, which looked like it was running high fuel actually. They would pile into the left-hander, pick up the throttle nice and early and power up the hill, and the Red Bull looked like it was on rails. It looked incredible. The Merc, similar but maybe not quite as easy, but arriving faster because I think they've got more power. They're certainly running the engine in a higher state of tune, I think, at the moment. But Leclerc, he would arrive at a similar speed, but when he went to pick up the throttle, the front would just wash and you could see the car jump towards the outside of the track. He was needing all the road to get through at speed, and I wondered if that was a problem specific to just that section, but Vettel seemed to have a similar problem at lower speed. So at turn 5, before Lewis shut down when he was chasing the Mercedes, Lewis could get tight to the inside before powering out. Vettel couldn't use that same line. He was having to open the steering to carry the speed and drive a longer line around the corner. And something Leclerc said in his press conference yesterday about the balance, he said they've got work to do from entry to exit of the corner, and that tallies with the visual impression. There's work to do at the front. It's not a bad car. It's not plunging into the midfield, but it's not handling the way that they would hope at the moment.
Now, Leclerc yesterday mentioned the blustery conditions here at Barcelona. As you can probably see, my ridiculous haircut going all over the place because it is fairly windy. Could that be contributing to the problem, or is it just a fundamental car issue that they've got to solve?
I think there's a fundamental car issue. I've heard that Vettel was complaining about the car understeering last week, so this is not something we're seeing in isolation. It's been throughout testing. I think the conditions have played a part in why the times have been unimpressive so far compared to last week. I think Carlos Sainz has touched on that. I just think Ferrari have a problem with the front wing or the aerodynamics that they're still working through. And if they can get that front end sorted out, then they'll unlock more performance from the car. But at the moment, I would say they are behind Mercedes and Red Bull in terms of handling.
Now, the front end is famously what Sebastian Vettel needs to be able to be quick. We saw at Singapore last year, Ferrari introduced a massive upgrade package, and that was suddenly he was that bit step forward, step quicker. Bit of an issue then for him heading into Australia in the first race?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, obviously you want as much confidence in the car as you can get. So I think to have this issue sort of appearing as Ben touched on, I think it is, definitely cause for concern. And it kind of adds up with the very sort of quiet and I think understated approach that Ferrari taken to this pre-season. And I mean, there is all for downplaying expectations and not running away with crazy ideas of being able to dominate the race or anything like that. But there's been none of that. They keep saying we are behind Mercedes, behind Red Bull. We need to get on top of this issue. And I think to have another difficult season ahead of them, it's really not a confidence builder.
Now, Ben, maybe you could give us a rundown of what all the other cars look like visually trackside, starting with the Red Bull, which I think, again, we didn't really see sort of their hand again on Thursday, because Max Verstappen, it was wet this morning, we should point out, so it's not a lot took place first thing in the morning, and when Verstappen did go out, he had some aero rakes on, he spun a couple of times, it looked a bit of a handful, and then he binned it into the gravel at turn 5, where it was all seemed to be going off today, where Vettel went off and then Hamilton had his issue. So what do you make of the Red Bull and then the other cars as well? Yeah,
I got a better sense of what the Red Bull was like yesterday, when Max was out in the afternoon, and it looked incredible through 7 and 8, the pick of the cars. The only caveat is how much power are they extracting from that new Honda engine, how much are they holding back, because it doesn't look like it arrives quite as fast, and it doesn't look like it powers up the hill as well as the Mercedes or the Ferrari. But in terms of drivability, the Red Bull is the car I'd want to be in at the moment. Mercedes is close. I think Red Bull have a sense that probably the Merc is the car to beat once they put everything together. I think we'll probably see more of their performance running tomorrow. Certainly that's what James Allison was suggesting. And then behind Ferrari, it's really, really tight. A lot's being made of the pink Mercedes, a Racing Point. I mean, it looks like a good car, but I was watching Sergio Perez. I thought it was Lance Stroll because it had number 18 on it, but it turns out it was Perez driving yesterday afternoon. He was chasing Lando Norris for a long time. Looked like they were on a similar run program, and Norris could carry really good speed into 7 and pick up the throttle and not really have any problems. The McLaren looked the most impressive midfield car through that section.
He was saying today that the car just feels much more consistent overall compared to last year's McLaren.
The McLaren is certainly very strong at medium speed. I think it's the pick of the midfield cars in that type of corner. The Racing Point isn't able to stick that corner as well. Perez had to back off because he had a massive moment in 7, and in order to keep his run consistent, he just had to rein himself in. The Haas looked messy yesterday in Grosjean hand, but much more together today with Magnussen out in the afternoon. They seem to feel like they're not running particularly light compared to other midfield cars, so if that's true, then they look pretty decent again over one lap. Of course, the question mark for them is more long runs and whether they can hold on to the tyres. That car looks decent, but probably the pick of the midfield cars over the full range of the circuit is the Alpha Tauri, I should say. I almost said Tauri. I described it as a
star.
I described it as a kind of low-res Red Bull yesterday.
Got a bit of stick on social media.
Caused a bit of offence, actually, but
not you have a problem with that, Ben.
No, but I should probably clarify that I mean it as a compliment, because behaviour on track is very similar to the Red Bull. It looks very drivable. The drivers have massive confidence in the car. The question mark again is, how much engine performance have they got in the tank?
Absolutely. Well, we've only got one more day, finally. Pre-season testing. It's only been 6 days this year, and the last one is tomorrow. Luke, what? I know we've got to wrap up briefly. Our producer was waving at us off camera. What can we expect on the final day, do you think? I just want fast times. I want everyone's given them all they've got, and let's really get down towards that benchmark Bottas set last week. 15.7, I believe, is the time to beat. So, if we can get that, maybe even a new track record, that'd be really cool. Well, join us tomorrow for we'll be recapping the final day of pre-season testing in 2020. Thank you very much for watching. Do check out all our social media channels and our stories on autosport.com and motorsport.com. And don't forget to leave your comments on YouTube, and also subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you very much.